Who are the alumni of HKN? How do alumni remain engaged with chapters? In what ways does HKN serve our alumni communities? Hello, I am Joseph Green, one of the 2021 IEEE HKN student governors, and welcome to our 11th episode of the HKN Connection. In this episode, we would demystify who the HKN alumni are, discuss the value our alumni community brings to HKN, and dive into our current initiatives HKN is pursuing to better engage alumni of all ages. This episode will also feature the Young Alumni Task Force and Alumni Engagement Committee, both of which are targeted teams looking to increase the value of membership for alumni. Our guests for this episode will be the Alumni Engagement Committee Chair, HKN Governor at Large and IEEE Fellow, Hulya Kirkici, and Young Alumni Task Force member, Amy Jones. You can find more information about our amazing guests and their IEEE history in the description of this video. Thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be a really fun conversation over the course of this next 45 minutes or so here. And to get the conversation started, I know one question we get a lot in HKN is what's actually the difference between a professional member and alumni, because both are individuals that probably finished a degree path, have a job in industry, so how do we differentiate these two communities, and how is engaging with alumni different? And I'm going to ask that question to both of you, starting with Hulya.
So now the question is, how do alumni get engaged? And in my opinion, I really did not experience that because I was initiated to HKN as a professional member, and through my day job, which is a university professor, and engaging with my students, it was always my aim to be able to reach out to my students, current or former students, to get them involved, get them do volunteer work, get them to be part of the community and IEEE and other professional organizations. And I think for many students, it is even as a IEEE member or HKN member, it is extremely difficult for them to keep up the current activities after once they graduated. And I think that is the hardest part, to be able to reach out to them. And I think it is more on the individual side for the people willing to do the work, rather than people being trained or educated or informed. So I think what we are doing with our community committee right now within the HKN board is we are trying to put more structure into the system so that we can reach out to all those alumni out there and may or may not know what we are doing, and tell them how great our students are doing, how great HKN is doing, and how great we would be within the community and serving our profession.
Awesome, thank you. And Amy, to you.
So for me, the difference between a professional member and an alumni is how you come to first join HKN. An alumni is, by definition, a student member who's graduated. So those members are usually people who have a connection with HKN that they developed while as a student. So they're familiar with the history, the induction ceremony. They probably have a perception of what HKN is like. A professional member joins us after a strong history in their career. They have a foundation of contributing to our profession. And so when they join us, it's very much a recognition for them, but they may not have the same connection that our alumni have based on their involvement as a younger individual. So when I think about engaging alumni, the challenge that I see is helping people transition from engaging with HKN as a student and really sharing what value we can bring to you as a young professional within your career and as you develop.
Yeah, definitely. And I really appreciate both of these answers, because on one side, both of these are very valued communities within our organization, both professional and alumni, and at least in my opinion, they seem to have slightly different focuses, where alumni still have that ties to the chapter more so, and professionals more so have the ties to the corporate responsibilities and the corporate background. And both of these audiences can bring two different benefits to HKN by engaging with the overall organization. Diving into that maybe a little bit further, in your experience and in your observation, can you tell us a couple of prominent ways you've seen alumni contribute to our local and international community?
Yes, as you know, HKN started in the United States, and till recent years, we have not reached out to international communities. And I think my focus is really when I travel and when I give lectures or attend conferences, I directly reach out to those in the community within or outside the United States to reach out to HKN members and bring them back into the community. And I think most prominent way is just look out and look for those who are in your professional interest and see if they are HKN members or not, and most likely they are. Until HKN joined IEEE, and I really didn't do much of this work myself. However, once HKN and IEEE merged and HKN became the IEEE's honor society, then it was a lot more prominent, basically meeting alumni in conferences and engaging and telling them what HKN is doing for our students and how we can help the students transition from student member to professional members and become an alumni and serve the community.
Yeah, that's a very interesting answer, and I think you touched upon a very intriguing aspect of our alumni community that I actually didn't consider, so if you don't mind me deviating from our script a
Sure.
little bit here, a question for you is, you've had the chance to observe alumni who have joined IEEE-HKN back when it was HKN as a standalone honor society, and also as IEEE-HKN as the honor society within IEEE. Have you noticed a difference in how you engage both these communities, or the interests in how you engage both of these separate alumni communities?
I think they are pretty much the same. They're both professional societies. In terms of engagement methodologies and engagement tools that you have is really pretty similar. And however, for before HKN became part of IEEE, and I think there were not much opportunities in terms of conferences, in terms of networking, in terms of sharing ideas and opportunities. And I think since became a part of IEEE, those opportunities has grown more naturally, and I think that is a very, very positive development. And in fact, these days it's becoming more prominent among the communities.
I think that's so true, Hulya.
That's awesome, yeah. And it's fun to dive in and hear a little bit more about who are our alumni, how do they become engaged. And speaking of engagement, both of you have had an extensive IEEE and HKN volunteer history as well. While we have the platform here, I'm personally interested. Can you tell us a little bit more about your own experiences and how you came to join HKN?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had probably a little bit more typical journey into HKN. I was inducted as a student at the University of Missouri-Rolla, which has since changed its name to the Missouri University of Science and Technology, I think. It was something that I was incredibly proud of as a student. I saw it as an opportunity to really build some better connections, both with my classmates and with my professors. And it certainly served that purpose for me as a student. When I graduated, I, like many people, started focusing a little bit more on career development within my company. And recently, in probably the past three or so years, rejoined HKN as a volunteer, focusing on things like sharing our induction and how important that is for us as a cultural touchstone within our organization. And then now as the Young Alumni Task Force. One of the things that I'm most proud of with my membership in HKN is that my dad was actually a member of HKN at the same school. So when I called home and told him that I was going to be inducted, he was so proud, and it's one of the most wonderful memories that I have of really sharing a connection with my father. And so that is something that I think is really special about HKN, is the connection that it offers from all of the new people into the profession, it really does feel like being welcomed into a community of people who really care about engineering and what we can do with it.
And I think for me is I have been an IEEE member forever. It feels like it. But I didn't have the opportunity to join HKN or being asked to, invited to be initiated for HKN when I was a student, simply because my undergraduate studies are from a different country, and my Ph.D. was I received in the United States, and then became a professor at Auburn University. And my students actually invited me and asked me. And I said that was a very proud moment for me, that my students considered me to be initiated to HKN, which I did, and I was very happy. But as an IEEE volunteer, I have been always an IEEE volunteer ever since I was a graduate student, and continued that tradition, being an IEEE volunteer. And recent years, since I moved to University of South Alabama and became the department chair of the electrical and computer engineering, and I realized that our students here are not seeing the same attention as they have seen and had the privilege of doing at Auburn University. And I started to work with our students and get them understand what HKN means, and started to find faculty members who are willing to help the students. And we basically started from pretty much zero activities to right now is one of the very active chapters within the area. And I think that is the thing. And I think individual attention is really very important. And being able to identify what is missing in the chapter activities, I think, is the key issue. Once you identify those, solutions are easy and people are willing to help. And I think that's a very, very key issue. And for those listening and if they want to have lessons learned, please look at your chapter and see what is missing. And from there, and look for who are willing to help. And I bet you there will be a lot willing to help. A lot of people will be helping.
I really appreciate hearing both of your experiences joining HKN, and I think both of you touched on a very valid point that we're going to dive into a little bit later, but that's the mentality that, HKN isn't just a student organization, and even beyond that, the backbone of many of our chapters and many of our initiatives and many of our volunteer works come from professional members like yourself, as well as alumni. And Hulya, just to follow up on that question a little bit with you, I know Amy mentioned one aspect she appreciated most about becoming re-engaged with HKN was the sense of camaraderie it gave her with her father and other peers. When you joined HKN, what was your first reaction to getting exposed to our international community? Was it something different than being an IEEE volunteer?
No, I think for me, once I was asked if, once my students told me that I was invited to join HKN, that was very gratifying. And I was very honored. And I really didn't even know what it was. Shame on me at that time. but once I knew what it was, and I looked it up and I understood, and it was very, very, important task. Now, in terms of connecting alumni and members across the globe and internationally, and I think it is very important to bring this philosophy of the HKN carries, the character, the attitude, the scholarship. All of those are very important, and I know our students, our alumni, practice these every day, but they may not be thinking about it. And I think that carrying the message to those people and making them aware of and making the connections and bringing them back, and I think that's the key issue. It's not just international, it is domestic, and I think international communities are just not familiar with HKN. That is the part that we need to work a little bit more.
Sure.
And bring the knowledge to international communities.
Awesome. Thank you. And Amy, ask a follow-up question for you. You've gotten the unique opportunity to witness HKN not only as a student, but as a young alumni as well. And so, in your experience, as you transition from being a student to being in the workforce to returning to HKN, what value did HKN retain for you over the course of these steps?
That's such a great question. You know, as a student, one of the things that I really appreciated about my HKN membership is that it really served as kind of a safe space for me to practice a lot of skills. You know, putting on a student leadership conference, or introducing a speaker to a chapter meeting, or even just how do you sit down and converse with a professor as a peer working on something towards a common goal. All of those were incredible skills for me. As I transitioned into my career, I really didn't necessarily see that value until a few years in, I realized that I work at a big company and I was connecting with absolutely zero people outside of my company. And I was looking around and I was like, wow, there's so many amazing things going on in the industry and so many conferences and things like that I would like to engage with. And I have no community outside of people who have an email address that ends with the same thing that mine does. So that was really why I started getting connected again with HKN. It was an opportunity for me to broaden my community, to really diversify my experiences and my exposure. And that in turn has made me a more valuable employee to my company. It's really contributed to my professional development. Similarly, I've really been interested in how do I give back now? You know, I'm 10 plus years into my career. I have small children, so I'm a little bit time limited. But at the same time, I'm looking for opportunities to really continue the legacy of engineering and try and help others coming along behind me. And HKN has provided me a really fantastic opportunity to do some of that, you know, speaking to groups like this, to talking about some of the things I've learned about interviewing and being a manager. And that's really exciting for me. Again, it's a way for me to give back to the community that has given so much to me. So that's part of what I'm so excited to share about today is really those opportunities that we can provide for our young alumni, both in development and in service.
You know, I really appreciate that perspective because I think it tackles a bit of a misconception that I've seen in HKN chapters, which is the perception that HKN is a student-only organization or a student-focused organization. But in actuality, when you're inducted into HKN, you're inducted for life. And I know HKN has been developing a number of initiatives and a number of focuses to try to better engage our alumni, better connect them with other communities in HKN, and overall increase the value of membership. Now, building off of that point, I understand that both of you are critical members of HKN alumni-focused teams. Could you take a moment to familiarize our audience with your respective committees, their main goals, and current initiatives? And Hulya, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so this is my first year on the board, and when I became the board member, and this idea of alumni was floating around, and I never thought about before then what alumni means, HKN alumni means. And of course, in my day job, we continuously engage with our student alumni, and we see them, we engage them, we visit them, we meet them in conferences, we continuously network, and continuously have communications. However, in HKN, I really didn't realize what that meant. And the more I thought about it, I mean, this is nothing different than anything else. It is simply continuing that tradition of learning and continue to share the experiences that we have had, and continuously be in the network in the area that we continuously be part of our community. And I think that is Amy put it very, very well, is really, really important. So then I started thinking, now we do all these activities for our chapters and we let them loose and we said, okay, here it is, and you go on your way. And that shouldn't be the case. And I said, the case should be, we continues to nurture, we continues to train, we continue to be part of that network that we build, and don't just let it go and become a dormant. So that is what I am right now working on in not as a chair of this committee, but also from my perspective in local area, and I am trying to start an alumni chapter here.
Nice.
And then invite them and make sure that professional or the professionals who are alumni come back to campus and be part of our student body and be a connection to the next generation engineers to make sure that our engineering work task force will continue with all the soft skills that engineering students don't get.
I see. And building off of that, there's two aspects I'd like to touch upon there. The first is, I know you're chair of the upcoming Alumni Engagement Committee. Did you want to talk a little bit more about what you hope to accomplish through that committee?
Yeah, we haven't really had any concrete plans just yet. But most importantly, we are discussing several options. One is bring them back to campus. The other one is, again, forming either formal or informal local alumni chapters, having socials, and perhaps continue fundraising activities for chapter activities for our students. And most importantly, like I said, I'm an engineering educator, and in classroom, we really don't teach our students the soft skills like leadership, like ethics, like social activities, and being engaged and networking. And I think those soft skills are so important in today's engineering. And I think HKN or IEEE and other student chapter organizations are really an awesome place for these type of soft skill extracurricular activities to build upon and to complete and make an engineer to be more productive and more effective engineer in the future careers. So in terms of activities, again, Joe, I probably did not answer you directly, but there's few other things that we're still working on it. But most importantly, we want to make sure that our alumni know we exist. And we don't want to leave them out there and saying that, oh, I'm inducted now, it's just the title. We want to engage and we want to make sure that they remember.
I think that's wonderful, and I know that the Alumni Committee your Alumni Engagement Committee is relatively new, only being formed a couple months ago. So as it takes shape and as you continue to develop initiatives, it's going to be very exciting to see the unique ways that you're going to engage with our alumni and help us tie all these communities together. Moving on to Amy, I also understand you're part of the Young Alumni Task Force. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What is a Young Alumni and what do you hope to accomplish through this task force?
Well, for one, I think we've got the coolest name in just about any piece of HKN. So I joke a little bit that being a young alumni is kind of defined by, how young do you feel at heart, really? So we don't have a certain age cutoff or things like that. For me, what really defines a young alumni is someone who is going through transitions in their career. Perhaps they've just graduated, they're starting a new job. They're trying to decide, do they want to go to grad school? Do they want to, maybe focus on a knowledge path, being a technical leader? Do they want to go become a people leader and a manager? So there's lots of foundational work that happens in the early part of your career. And so the Young Alumni Task Force is really developed to help us provide some support and some connection for our members who are going through that very specific stage in their lifelong career.
That's awesome. And I also understand that you're developing a podcast as well. Do you want to tell us a little more about that?
Oh, I would love to. Unfortunately, this one has set the bar so high. So we have a lot of work to do to get it up to this level of professionalism. But what we wanted to do is when we think about really the things that make us HKN, a focus on scholarship, on character, on attitude. As Hulya mentioned, the soft skills and some of those topics are really things that distinguish our members. And so what we wanted to do was to continue offering some development topics around that in the form of a podcast. Something easily digestible, you can listen to it on your commute or potentially over your lunch. And what we wanted to do is really focus on things like how do you continue to technically develop while you're trying to balance the demands of a full-time role? And how do you have maybe some more difficult conversations? How do you, maybe as a young manager, talk to an employee who's having a difficulty performing? How do you look into maybe some emerging technology topics? What do we do about science advocacy and some of those things? So we're really excited to delve in and develop some of those topics and hopefully share it very soon in the upcoming months.
That's awesome. And personally, I'm looking forward to it. I know I'm not an alumni, but I think there's some really cool topics and some really cool subject matters you're going to tackle over the course of your podcast. So I'll definitely be keeping my eye out for it.
Well, we'll adopt you, Joe. You can be an honorary young alumni.
Honorary alumni. That's funny. Does that mean I get to finish my Ph.D. now? I don't need to go through the rest of the 3 years?
As soon as I get that power, I'm pretty sure that HKN is going to be the most popular organization in the world.
But of course. That's really funny. Speaking of your initiatives, which all sound amazing, it also begs the question of engaging alumni. Now, I know that engaging individuals in a volunteer organization can be difficult. So just to make sure we have expectations set over the course of this podcast, how are you looking to engage alumni considering their enthusiasm level and also time commitment while trying to balance a full-time job? And this is a question for Amy.
It's such a perfect question. And to me, it's a question that's very close to my heart. In my career, I've gone, I've graduated. I've worked a really demanding role with a lot of travel, international travel. I've gone to grad school twice while working. And so I definitely understand the demands that being a young professional has on your career. One of the things that's really emerged as we started to think about what people need is that the needs of young professionals have evolved from when they were a student, but they haven't changed totally. We all need connection. We all need opportunities for development. And when we think about time commitments and how we're planning to engage with people, really what we want to do is we want to meet people where they are. Maybe all that you really want to do is just have a touch point and a reconnection with HKN as a young alumni. If that's the case, we have an alumni reconnect form that I'm hoping, Joe, you can put in the description of this video. Really encourage people just to start with that very basic 5-minute step, and that's fantastic. That means that as we have more opportunities for you, you can share them. Everything from filling out a form up to listening to a podcast to potentially volunteering at an event, all the way up to doing something like volunteering for a committee or continuing your development through IEEE. There is such a broad spectrum of ways to be engaged. And really what we want to do is make sure that whatever your time commitment, HKN has an opportunity to provide value to you. We really care about our members. We want you guys to grow and develop, and however we can help you do that, we're here.
That's awesome. And I really appreciate those words for any alumni that might be considering to reconnect. HKN, and we've touched upon this a little bit before, it really is like a family. Like, I can't tell you how welcome I felt both joining my chapter and then getting engaged on a higher stance by being student governor by everyone involved in the organization. So there's a great sense of camaraderie and also a great amount of reward that I feel like I've been able to get out of the time that I've put in. I'm not sure if both of you feel a similar way with your time with HKN.
I can tell you, I personally do. I mean, I would be incredibly intimidated to go up to somebody like Hulya, who's a professor and a department chair. But having HKN as a connection means that Hulya is now someone that I can count as, like a mentor or, a role model for me. And so that connection really does build a bridge, if you'll pardon the pun.
Amy, that's an awesome answer, and you actually stole my answer. And I was going to comment on your podcast that I am really looking forward to. Every one of us needs those refreshers anytime, every time of their careers. So I'm really looking forward to some of those topics that you are going to introduce, especially dealing with difficult people or challenging people. That is just so important. It's very natural. It is everyday life, and it's either you're a student and you're having issues with your classmates, or if you're a professional engineer at work and even at home, dealing with your children, right? We all need that training. But I think connecting is, for me, I said, and I'm a really long time IEEE volunteer, and I started with actively volunteering by a colleague asked me at a conference to chair a conference and for the next cycle. And it was a weak moment, I guess. And I said yes. And so since then, I have not learned to say no. So if I'm asked to volunteer, and I say yes. And really, these days, I don't have to do it for my job, and I don't have to do it for other reasons, except my purpose is really to pay forward. Because those people reached out to me and helped me in my career, my profession, and it's my job now that I do the same for our young generation engineers. And that's really the purpose. Amy said she sees me as a mentor, and I'm honored. And of course, in engineering, we have challenges with building diversity within our systems. And I think one of the things to dear to my heart is to continue that diversity. And if you look at the inductees of IEEE students into HKN, we have a quite few, reasonable balance on those numbers. However, as they become more professional in their careers, those numbers and engagement just sort of dwindles down, and we don't retain them. Part of the things that in the alumni engagement committee that I am looking forward to, how can we bring that diversity back?
Awesome.
We initiate them as much, however, we're not retaining. So that's one of the things that retention is one issue that we need to be addressing.
As a follow-up question for you, I know one typical bar for entry that I've seen for alumni who want to come back is the fact that they might not have an IEEE membership at the current time. So when it comes to HKN, do you need a IEEE membership to rejoin our community, or where does the whole IEEE membership aspect play into being a volunteer or alumni at HKN?
Yeah, Joe, you're absolutely right. And I think people forget that once you're an HKN member initiated to HKN, you are a member for life. That's an honor. It's not a real membership. We call it member, but it's an honor. And you're always an HKN member. However, formal membership of IEEE is a professional society membership and is only required if you would like to have an active role as leading chapter activities or leading an IEEE related activities or serving on board of governors or serving on a committee, HKN committee. These are formal committees that requires current IEEE membership. However, to be part of the community, you do not have to have IEEE membership. You are still part of the community, and that is the I think that's the education that I need to be doing, telling our colleagues, our members, our IEEE or HKN members that you do not have to be an IEEE member to engage the part of the community until you are ready to take an active role.
That's awesome. Thank you for clarifying that for me. Moving on to our next question, and this is going to be a question for both of you, starting with Hulya. Especially in today's technological age, there's a strong incentive to have professionals re-specialize either once they join the workforce or later in their career. How do your initiatives look to aid alumni in this and other modern challenges, such as the COVID-19 stance or work-life balance in the increasingly digital age? And also, to follow up with one more question there, what do you see as the greatest challenge in retaining or engaging alumni?
Yeah, and I think there's a engagement or HKN. We always tell our students when they're initiated HKN, sometimes they come and says, do I really need to join? And I'm invited, and what is it for me? And I said, well, it is a valuable asset. simply because you put it on your resume. That's the short answer. But I think that in the long term is very important. We have not started considering or working on any of these things for our alumni in terms of professional development, like dealing with, what can we do for value to your profession other than just you're an HKN member. We have not talked about it, but Amy, I think, has great ideas. Those are very, very important. Especially for diversity perspective, the work-life balance is very important. That's one training. Amy opened the door when he said, even though they're called young alumni engagement, and I think we are young at heart, so I will send all these young at heart colleagues to your podcast about those professional development activities, and I think that's a great thing. And really, we need to be able to find what their needs are in the professional development, because each professional development is unique. For academicians, professional development means that be active in IEEE, be a reviewer, be a conference organizer, etc. For a practicing engineer, those are irrelevant, right? What is important is how they can learn new technologies in their career so that they can advance in their careers. And I think those are issues that we are working on, and we will continue to work, and we will develop set of professional development tools for our adult professionals, not young professionals, but they're the same issues, and we will continue to work on those. And COVID is everybody's issue. It's not just us. It is from from age. Once you're born, these days COVID is a problem until you're your elderlies, and it is a challenge. And of course we're here to help. That's another thing. In terms of tools for professional development, like I said, we will have to identify and classify those needs and address them individually.
That's
Well, yeah,
right.
I love your answer so much. I think there's so much more that we have in common than what we have separate, and I really love that we're looking at our community as a whole. Joe, you asked what we see as the biggest challenges for the modern professional or alumni. For me, if I was going to sum this up in one word, I think our biggest challenge, at least in front of us immediately, is isolation. Whether it's physical isolation due to COVID, whether it's focusing on that work-life balance. It's very easy to feel that you are on your own trying to tackle a giant mountain, or whether you're in a company and just focused very in an isolated manner on what your company is doing or on your project. So when I think about how we can support our alumni, I think of how do we break that isolation? How do we build community? How do we help people develop a broader understanding of what is going on around them in a technical space? How can we increase diversity and help some of our members who are members of diverse communities understand that they're not alone and that there are other people around them? So that's some of what I'm so excited about with Hulya's work, with our committee's work, and the possibility of HKN as a whole. I mean, we all become members because we're part of the best and brightest in academics. And so the world is facing challenges now where we need our best and our brightest. And if last year has taught us anything, it's that we can't do anything alone.
Yep.
No, I really appreciate that perspective, and I think it builds into a couple aspects we've been tangentially discussing about. But that's an overarching hope to synergize more of our communities. I think COVID-19 has very much shown us that we're best and strongest when we can work together, and it can be difficult when you're isolated, whether it's due to a pandemic or it's due to some sort of misconception or it's due to some sort of other environmental or departmental or a collegiate situation going on. And one aspect I would like to talk about for a little bit, this is going to be something I'd like to hear both of your opinions on, starting with Amy, if you don't mind, is how have you seen successful ways that alumni have integrated with other communities, such as professionals or chapters or graduate students? And is there any recommendations you have to chapters, graduate students, or professionals out there looking to work with alumni?
So when I was a student, the biggest thing that made me nervous was reaching out to a professional and asking for something. And now that I'm on the other side of the table as an alumna, I get absolutely thrilled when people ask me for something. Yes, I want to come talk to you. Yes, I want to read your resume. Yes, I want to know if you're interested in an internship at my company. So that is something that I see when we really connect with our young alumni, is an absolute eagerness to help people come along behind us. So when we think about successful ways that people have engaged with alumna, think about, is there any needs that your chapter has? Do you need a resume review workshop? Do you need interview skills? Do you need somebody to talk about what it's really like in the first year and how to make a strong impression in a new company? These are all things that our professional and our young alumni members have been through. We have things that we're so excited to share with you. So reaching out is really a gift, because we all want to know that our experiences are valuable and that we can help. So I would encourage anybody from a chapter who's listening to reach out and ask for that.
That's wonderful.
Well, it's same for me as well. Amy answered it perfectly, and I think I had same experience when I was a student, and I would be terrified to ask any questions to my professors, especially coming from a culture that you did not ask any questions to professors. You were expected to know everything, what every professor taught you in class. And that was extremely difficult for me to move to the United States and to get my degree. And I had to build on that early in my career, and I was still the same, and I couldn't, ask questions. I had to try to figure out myself. And until somebody said, if you don't ask the question, then the answer is always no. And it resonated with me. And today I tell continuously to my students, and says, if you don't ask me, the answer is always no, you have to ask. And in relation to that, in my practice, in my daily life, and I reach out to my students regularly. Joe, you mentioned COVID. During the COVID, and we were all virtual, and I continuously emailed the students just every week, and what's up? How is it going? And do you need anything? And I would just give little bit updates, what's happening in the department, what we are doing, what classes we're teaching, etc., what activities are happening. And I continue to do that with my current students, current colleagues, and colleagues that I have worked in the past, or my former students. I reach out to them even before they reach out to. And I think the important thing is being able to reach out and ask. And I would propagate here that please reach out, and we are ready here. And if I don't know the answer, I will find who knows the answer. And that's my attitude. And I want all HKN members listening to do the same. Tell your colleagues, tell your people, tell your communities. If you don't know the answer, it's okay. You can direct to someone else. And we don't know everything, but we can figure out together.
No, that's a great message, and I really appreciate you sharing it with us. One other aspect I would like to touch upon here when we're speaking about chapters engaging in alumni is one very successful practice we've seen over a number of our chapters is integrating alumni in events or as advisors or on the ground floor foundation of chapter operations. And that leads to more camaraderie, it leads to more opportunity, and it leads for opportunities for more knowledge transfer. And I understand we actually have a big event coming up in October for engaging chapters with alumni. And Hulya, would you like to tell us a little bit about what we have planned for our Founders Day this year?
Yeah, Founders Day is, as I'm sure all HKN members are familiar with that, is the day that we celebrate the formation of HKN, and we invite students. Normally, students counted as service, and in my university, we normally have it for the students, by HKN students, some form of activities. But moving forward, we are planning to invite the local alumni as well to that event. And my students always ask, do we have to have it at exactly the same day, October 28th? And my answer is no. Get as close as possible, at least within a week of closeness. And that's an important milestone for us to remember and celebrate that important day. And like I said, this year we are planning to invite our local alumni to come and mingle and have either hot chocolate if it is a cold day, or have cookies and soda if it's a warm day. And so those kind of the activities, main idea really is, one, to have engagement to celebrate the Founders Day.
That's awesome. Thanks for telling us a little bit more about that. I know this year HKN's changing its focus a little bit, where they really want the Founders Day event to be about your chapter history or your chapter story, the legacy, whether it's a 100-year chapter or a 5-year chapter or anything in between that's led to you today celebrating Founders Day. And combined with a video competition, they're encouraging chapters to engage with alumni. Is there any other words of encouragement you'd like to provide for chapters who might be on the fence of whether or not they want to do an event with alumni?
So I think what all chapters should have access to, the officers should have access to database. Just go to your database and search for the people who are either active or inactive members, IEEE members on the database, who are HKN members and are living in your local area. And look through their initiation date and invite them individually and bring them back to campus. And I think that would go a long way. And it's okay if those people decline, but you have to reach out. That's the thing, right? We have to keep reaching out, and eventually somebody will say yes. And that will be my first advice. And second is continuously publicize your activities, and through your local newsletters or through webinars or through LinkedIn. If you don't have a LinkedIn page for your local chapter, establish one. And I think that's a good way to get engaged and get connected. And that's one thing. And if LinkedIn doesn't work, and if it is too old-fashioned, do Twitter, right? But believe me, old people like me will like LinkedIn better than Twitter or other forms of new things are going on right now. So just do that and find their common area and bring them back. And I think video is capturing that moment is very important. I have videos of my students from years past, and at the time it didn't mean anything. Right now it's very valuable. And you will not think that it is valuable now, but in 3-4 years, maybe 10 years from now, it will be very valuable. You will look at that, it says, yeah, I forgot I did this. And there are more other things, and there are kits available for you for Founders Day. Please reach out to HKN headquarters to get your kits for the Founders Day to hand out. And if you don't have any resources, reach out to headquarters. Maybe we can help with all these resources that you may need. So chapters really need to be thinking about it now and start reaching out and getting engagement.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Now, looking at the time and moving ahead to our final question, building off of an earlier point we discussed, it's natural when alumni hear about all these opportunities coming up or hear about HKN trying to reconnect in them, for them to ask, what's in it for me when considering any new or old commitments? What parting words would you like to say to any alumni out there who are on the fence about participating in HKN? And we can start with Amy.
I would say when you join HKN as a student, you make us better. Everyone that joins us makes us a stronger community and a better organization. And the same is true as a professional. As a young alumni, you have something to offer, and we also have something to offer you. We are better together than we are apart, and we really truly care about connecting with you and helping you on the next stage of your career, whatever that is.
And Amy said it perfectly, and really we all have something to give and share and be part of it. And I think if somebody at my age, I think for us, most important thing is looking back and remembering what it is like. And you may think that, oh, Hulya is towards the end of her career, or she's too high and I cannot talk to her. It's not. People at my age is really looking for young generation to see that they reach out to them, and we are ready to give back. We're ready to pay forward to your education, your career, and your professional development. So I think most important thing is just bring whatever value you have, even if it is just a say hello, that is still a value. So we want to hear from you, whatever way, whatever form, wherever you are, we want to hear from you.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences over the course of this episode. And with that, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you again to our guests Hulya and Amy for telling us a little bit more about the alumni experience within HKN, as well as our upcoming initiatives. To any HKN alumni who's watching this is a great time to get involved. To all our members, we have a number of exciting events coming up in the near future. On October 2nd, 3rd, 6th, and 9th, we're going to have our Student Leadership Conference, which is completely virtual and completely available for all of our student members out there. Registration will open September 1st, so keep your eye out for that event. And as well, as we talked about a number of times, on October 28th, we have our Founders Day event geared around your chapter story, which is a great opportunity to engage with alumni. So start thinking about that event, put in a request for our Founders Day kit, and let's get the ball rolling and have some awesome chapter activity reports and videos to come in. For now, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with all of our HKN material, and thank you so much for watching. Bye now.
Bye-bye.